let's talk about some of the essentials that an executive really should know about the Veneto wine region of Italy. When we say essentials, what we mean, among other things, is four items. One is that what are the grapes from a given region? This is important to know. Secondly, what are the flavors and aromas that one can expect in a glass of wine from that region? Thirdly, how do I pair that with food? So how do I pair food to those wines, or wine with the food, and so on? And then fourthly, what are the bottles from this region that are truly important to remember? The bottles I should recognize if ordered or if I see them on a wine list. Let's move into some of the essentials that are specific to Veneto. And here I would remember really Amarone. All right, Amarone is the wine from Veneto that I think you should remember. And in fact, if you don't remember Veneto, just remember Amarone. Amarone wines are made in a particular style where they harvest the grapes, they lay them on mats, and they let the grapes dry out. And in doing so, the water content declines, and the proportion of sugar in the grapes is higher. They then press the grapes and make a wine with enormous concentration and complexity. And they do it by this drying method. They dry the grapes. It makes enormous wines. So I would remember Amarone, drying the grapes, a very peculiar but very specific process that they use to make more complex wines, and they're very big wines, very, very robust, very big wines. Now, Veneto, as the name would suggest, is near Venice. Venice is one of the cities in this region. It's in the northernmost part of Italy. And the grapes that are used in this region are manifold, and most of them you would not recognize. So names like Corvina, Rondinella, Molinara, these are not grapes that are typically roll off people's tongues. They aren't grapes that you would normally know. And it's not so important that you memorize those grapes, as a matter of fact. I think in looking at the essentials, I would simply remember that for reds, I just remember Amarone. All of those grapes are used in Amarone. Likewise for the whites. For the whites, we have Garganega, Pinot Bianco, Trebbiano. These are the white wines in Soave. Or Soave is a region that makes fine whites. Now, truth be told, I would not even focus on the whites at all. Here, as an executive, I really think that the one area you should know about is Amarone. So let's talk about Amarone. These are the grapes in Amarone. Again, less important than the wine itself. So, Amarone. Here, what you can expect are plum, and then start thinking dried fruit or concentrated fruit. Like raisin. It's not just grape; it's reduced grape. Dried grape. Fig, prune. So concentrated flavors. Think of violets also. Leather, perhaps dark chocolate. This wine is really robust. You'll get a very complex flavor profile. Also think savory. When I say savory, things like soy sauce or earth, sort of earthiness. Now the wine, because they raise the proportion of sugar to water in the grapes by this evaporation process, the drying process, you end up with wines that begin with more sugar and end with more alcohol. Right? All of they're dry wines. They are fermented down. All of the sugar is fermented into alcohol. But because the proportion of sugar is higher in the original starting point, you end up with high alcohol wines. So enormously robust, very interesting wines. A lot of wine enthusiasts are excited about Amarone. What would you pair a wine like Amarone with? Amarone is tricky. If you bring Amarone into the meal too soon, it will overpower a lot of things. So you need a meal that Amarone won't be able to push around, or you need to stage Amarone later in the meal. So think braised meats, rich stews, long slow cook is something that you want to think about. Rich pastas, aged cheeses. You may want to bring it out with cheese at the end of the meal. If you bring Amarone in too soon, you'll fry your taste buds for the rest of the meal. But it's just very robust and could overpower lighter dishes. Now Amarone is from Valpolicella, so think about. You'll see that on the label, but it will almost always be on the label. Most people would simply know it as Amarone. In terms of producers to look for, there are quite a few, but you could bear in mind a few of the ones that we've listed here. Masi, Sperry, Allegrini. These are all very, very fine producers of Amarone. Most of the time, Amarone it's difficult to go wrong. Amarone is typically made with a lot of care. In order to make it at all, it takes quite a lot of care. And in fact, it takes quite a lot of grapes. Because you're reducing the water down, it means that you need more grapes to make the same amount of wine. So it's actually an expensive wine, partly because of the process, because of the fact that it takes more material to do so. So in conclusion, think about when you think about Veneto, think Amarone, or in fact, simply think about Amarone. And when you think about Amarone, think enormous wines made from this interesting process of drying and evaporating some of the water out of the grapes before the wine is made. High alcohol, very complex, sort of a wine enthusiast's wine, if you will.